Greetings, children of the screen. Your friendly neighborhood nerd scum here once again, and today I want to take just a couple of minutes to talk to you guys about the documentary The Last Blockbuster, which right now is like within the top 10 films on Netflix. And furthermore, I want to kind of touch upon the idea of, is this movie actually a documenting of the decline and death of Blockbuster, or is the film in of itself the decline and death of documentary filmmaking? Right on, guys. So, yeah, in all the reviews I've watched and read for this movie, they all seem to be pretty positive. And in some of these reviews that I've seen here on YouTube, people are saying that this is the best documentary they've ever seen in their lives. To those people, watch more documentaries. Because, yeah, if this movie had not been on Netflix and have a bunch of celebrity interview segments in it, I would have thought this was the end of year film from a first year film student. But that is not to say that there aren't things that the movie does well. Now, there are certain sections of the movie, because the movie's kind of blocked off into like two different sections that are spread out throughout the film. So you have the first part, which is all the information about Blockbuster, the rise and fall, but then it's framed within the idea of this store that would eventually become the last Blockbuster and telling the story of that store and the people who run it throughout that kind of arc. Um, and the stuff about Blockbuster itself, about how, like, where it came from, how it rose to prominence, how it took over, and then how it declined, most of that stuff is actually put together fairly well. The editing on it's really good. They have a lot of visual aids that really work. They've, brought together a lot of, like, old stock footage of commercials and different things like that, not to mention that they have people from on the inside of the company who are talking about the rise and decline of the company. So that stuff is all actually pretty well handled for the most part. But that only comprises about 25% of this movie. And the rest of it is talking heads with celebrities who really have nothing to do with the film itself or with Blockbuster. It's just them reminiscing on a world in which Blockbuster existed. And then the rest of it, as I said earlier, is kind of following this one particular store, its owners, and how it became the last Blockbuster on Earth. And both of those two parts of the film are utter and complete garbage. Let's start off just with the talking head celebrity stuff. As I said, about half of these celebrities have no real connection with Blockbuster outside of the fact that they used to rent movies there, which is not really that big a deal. Like, you need to get celebrities in this thing to sell it, but there are certain places where in these celebrity interviews, the whole thing just breaks down, and the worst of this is there's a scene that I swear to God is like a 5 or 6 minute long scene in this movie where one of their celebrity guests, I can't remember the guy's name right now, it's the guy from Super High Me, and also I think he's done some, yeah, he's from Trailer Park Boys. Can't remember his name. He can be funny at times, but they literally have a scene in this movie where they're wanting him to tell the story of how Netflix tried to sell themselves to Blockbuster and Blockbuster declined it. But he's never heard the story before. So in the scene, within the documentary, you hear the filmmakers tell him the story and then tell him to put his own spin on it and say it as if it's something that he knew already. And they do that and keep the whole thing in the movie. So in this one scene, like any sense, like in a documentary, you have to create a narrative, and there are definitely times where you ask people to phrase things in a certain way that'll help you progress that narrative. But right in this one scene, like any level of integrity the filmmakers had becomes completely shattered. Like, it's just like, holy crap, man. Like, you left that in the movie. So now I can't actually trust anything you say in this movie because it's probably all bullshit that you just fed to people and tried to make something out of it. Like, it makes me question if the facts that they're telling you in the actual, like, more documentary style part where they're talking about the actual rise and fall of Blockbuster, is that stuff even true? Because right here, we've literally seen that they have no problem with lying and manipulating their audience, which, again, lots of documentaries do. But most documentaries don't just put it up on Front Street with, like, really bad editing that just keeps in them literally directing their guest to say something that their guest has no knowledge of. It's completely and totally mind blowing. Then you have the other stuff where it's like following the store from the beginning to it becoming the last blockbuster, and some of the stuff is really interesting. But once we get to the point where it's actually blockbuster and we're dealing with Sandy, the lady who manages, who I have nothing against Sandy, she's doing a fantastic job. She's trying to keep her blockbuster open, but they don't really like we never actually get to know anything about this woman or her life or get a sense of what her life is like. It's like the things they chose to film and document are all filler. There's literally a scene in this where, and this is technically us learning something about her, but it has no bearing on the overall movie. We see a thing where she's making winter hats that she's gonna like sell on Etsy or something. But literally, this comes in the last 30 minutes of the movie, and it happens, and it's like a 3 to 5 minute scene where you see her making a little ball that goes on the top of it and talking about how she needs to sell it. And I guess what they're trying to do is imply that without this blockbuster, that's going to be her only livelihood, but they never actually make that connection. And then the thing about the hats never comes up again. There are also multitudes of scenes where she like points out her family members who've worked at this blockbuster, but we don't really get any real insight into how it has affected her family unit or any of these kind of things. Like, we don't ever actually emotionally connect to this people, so all this time is just completely wasted and is completely filler. Essentially, this movie should be 30 minutes long. They should just take the informational segments that they have that are actually put together pretty well, and that should be their movie. Because that is the only thing that holds up as documentary filmmaking in this. The rest of it is all pointless, useless filler. And again, in all these reviews, people are like, oh, it fills me with such a sense of nostalgia. Yeah, I got that feeling too when I was watching the movie. That's not good filmmaking. They're preying on your nostalgia for something. Like that's no different than them continuing to make Terminator movies because we have nostalgia for the originals, so that'll ensure at least a certain number of people will go and see it. Like, no, it's creatively bankrupt. It has no integrity as filmmaking, and is just manipulative bullshit. So yeah, basically what you have here is just a movie that's padded all to hell, full of bad filmmaking. The audio quality is awful in most of it. Things are completely inconsistent. They don't actually give you a good sense of like the timeline that we're working on when it comes to the people who opened the blockbuster, or they opened the original movie store, which was not rental store, which was not Blockbuster, to where it is now. In fact, the only thing that I found in the movie that was genuinely entertaining was that they brought in Lloyd Kaufman for some of the talking head interview segments because Lloyd Kaufman, historically hated Blockbuster. And what's really great about these segments is not only how much he hates Blockbuster, but also the contempt he has for the filmmakers. Now, this is the thing. I've met Lloyd and worked with him on a movie. Okay? So in that short time, I got to see both, like him pretending to be annoyed and have contempt for something, and him legitimately being annoyed and having contempt for something. And this is the second category. Like, he treats these filmmakers making this documentary with total and utter contempt, and it is 100% deserved, because he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly why he's there, and he knows exactly the kind of movie that they're making, and he does not give a fuck about it, he does not respect it, and he does not give a shit, Like, he's like, fuck it, you're gonna give me a paycheck to talk shit about Blockbuster? I'm there. But yeah, for me, that personally was the most entertaining thing about the movie, and as I said, there's a little bit of good documentary filmmaking, probably not by the main people who put this together. That's probably all put together by their editor, which the editing in the movie is, in terms of technical filmmaking, is probably some of the best stuff, except for when there are glaring problems like scenes where they just tell their talking heads celebrities to lie to us and they keep it in the movie, which I don't know if that's something that the director and like writer of this just thought was funny to keep in, or if the editor kept it in out of contempt for them. But yeah, man, so many documentaries on Netflix are so bad, and this one is no different. This might be one of the worst ones. Mind you, Tiger King, I also wasn't a fan of. I got a video about it, and that's also because of the manipulation that goes on in that documentary and how poorly put together it is, and this definitely follows suit. Maybe 15% of the documentaries on Netflix are worth a damn, and most of those are things that weren't made for Netflix. So yeah, If you really miss Blockbuster, if you feel nostalgic for Blockbuster, this movie might do it for you. But do not confuse having like an enjoyable experience because you remember Blockbuster fondly. Don't confuse that with this being a good movie, because it's frickin' not. It is really, really not. Like I said, this felt like a student film to me. Well, there you have it, children of the screen. Those are my thoughts on the documentary The Last Blockbuster, which, as I said, is currently on Netflix in the top 10, so clearly your mileage may vary. But if you did see this film, let me know down in the comments below what you thought of it. Did you think that it was a very well put together film, or did you just enjoy it for the nostalgia factor? Anyway, guys, if you like this video, please leave a like and share it with some friends. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because that's always helpful and appreciated, and make sure that you do not miss out on any of the content I have coming out in the future. Thank you very much, guys. Hope you have a good one. Nerd Scum, out.